Hey everyone, me again. So, if you've had your thumb at all on the pulse of what's going on in Milsurp, you're probably well aware that an absolute ton of Turkish-made 8mm Mauser is coming into the country right now, so much so that the retailers are offering it, the importers are offering it to the retailers by the pallet. And some of these retailers, although not all of them, are passing these savings on to the consumer. I've seen them priced maybe as low as 21, 22 cents a round, which is really quite a nice deal. I mean, that's comparable to 9mm plinking ammo for 8mm Mauser. So it seems like a good deal on the surface, but is it too good to be true? Why might it be too good to be true? Well, if you're if you're not familiar with Milsurp and Milsurp ammo in particular, you're new to this, the issue is storage condition. Centerfire Systems, for example, who I bought this from, indicates that this stuff could have been produced anywhere from the 30s to the 60s. In this particular batch, I haven't looked at every last round. I've seen ammo as early as 1931 and as late as, say, maybe 45, 46. There could be, of course, things outside of that I haven't noticed just yet. But because we don't know how well they've been stored until we get them, you could end up something that's, been stored in a way that allows the ingress of moisture or dramatic temperature shifts or exposure to extreme temperatures, and that could ruin the ammo. If you have a large amount of duds, effectively you've doubled your price per round because, if half the rounds don't go off. Simple math. Additionally, Turkish 8mm Mauser ammo does have kind of a reputation for being a little spicy, so much so that the general wisdom in surplus is that you shouldn't use it in any self-loading firearms. Pretty much 98 pattern Mausers are the way to go. I'm going to try this out in a Model 2447 and maybe some other Mausers later on if it ends up being goes okay. So you've no doubt already noticed the condition on this stuff tends to vary. For instance, this clip here looks more or less okay. Another one here that I found, this one looks really quite good as well. Some of it, not at all. For instance, this one looks really quite heavily oxidized, really quite sketchy. The patterns and the condition of the clips, of course, vary as well. So we can see here's a couple of different ones. Some of them have rust, like this guy here. So we do see kind of a mixed bag. Like I said, years seem to be quite a variety, anywhere from the 30s to the 40s. There could be stuff outside of that I haven't come across yet. But so far, some of these aren't looking so great. So definitely going to be interesting to try these out. I will go ahead and take these to the range, and we'll see if we run into any sort of problems with like hang fires or anything of that nature. Or if it, damages my rifle, which I don't anticipate happening, but who knows. And then we'll look at the brass afterwards as well to see if there's any kind of signs of trouble or anything of that nature. So I guess without any further ado, let's shoot some of this stuff. Oh, and one more quick blurb before we actually go shoot some of this stuff. I'm not going to do the whole thing where I pull the bullets and I weigh them for consistency or anything like that. That really speaks more to, the original kind of quality of its manufacture. That's not really what I'm after. I'm more after how well does this stuff actually hold up? How functional is it? How good a deal is this latest crop of ammunition? If you want the level of detail where people do that sort of stuff, there are better channels than mine that have already done that. I believe 8mm Mauser Man is one example, but there's probably at least a couple others that have done a similar thing. But like I said, this is really more about this current this current importation. Anyways, let's get rolling. Okay, having returned from the range, I'm not maimed in any way, at least not any more than I was before. The rifle held up fine. I didn't develop any cracks in the stock or any other sorts of problems that would occur with extremely overpressured ammunition. To my surprise, everything went off without any sort of hang fire or misfire. Having examined some of the brass, let me see if I can get it to focus. I didn't really see any signs of particular trouble, like any massive cratering or anything like that. None of the cases split. Let me see, just make sure that I can get these to focus. So for the most part, it seemed to work surprisingly well. I wasn't able to find all my brass just because it was, out in the snow. It was snowing out there, as you probably saw. And so I fired a grand total of like 30 rounds. I didn't encounter, like I said, any problems. I did make a point to try to bring a couple of the sketchier looking clips as well. I know all these rounds look fairly clean. I suspect that part of that is just because they got ejected into the snow. I picked them up, I dried them off. It kind of inadvertently ended up cleaning them. But to my surprise, all this stuff worked surprisingly well. I've heard from other people that they haven't had quite the same luck. They've had maybe 1 out of 10 rounds fail to go off. I think there was a person I spoke to that had maybe 1 out of every 5. So worst case scenario, your 22 cents a round is still not going to become 50 cents a round. But you may experience problems. Now, in my case, the reason I picked this rifle was actually rather deliberate, because first off, it's not a particularly valuable rifle because it's a 24-47. But secondly, it also I know this one to have kind of one of the stronger striker springs out there compared to some of my other ones. It runs with like everything. I've, fired 50s, Yugo stuff, pretty much anything you put in it, it seems to be able to fire. Maybe I wouldn't have had the same luck with like a Spanish Mauser or something like that. But and the reason I picked one of the least valuable ones, of course, is in case it does get damaged. But no, my luck has been really quite good. I just didn't encounter any problems whatsoever. So I'm reasonably happy with this purchase. Obviously, your mileage may vary depending on number of factors. This stuff isn't very consistent as far as, there's even been, in my batch, for instance, multiple years on the same clip. As I've pointed out, when I, open the case, there's some stuff looks pretty nasty. Some of it looks, more or less okay. None of it looks like, beautiful and pristine. But, some of it more than others, I suppose. But, for the most part, yeah, not too terrible. Obviously, there's still the matter of, I don't know how accurate it would have been. I, wasn't very scientific in testing for that. I also didn't, measure velocity with a chronograph or anything like that. But, for plinking ammo, it seems to be a pretty decent deal. It is, of course, corrosive. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, so definitely important to clean accordingly. But yeah, I guess that's kind of all I have to say on it. Thank you for watching as always.